This video is my belated reaction to the Ravens' 37-20 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Week 4. I feel like this situation is somewhat of an awakening for much of the Ravens fan base. You've got obvious lack of preparation, a lack of physicality, and just overall fight. Simply put, this Ravens team is not ready for the type of schedule that the NFL gave them early in the season. They've had trouble in recent years, particularly in Week 1 against the Bills, playing 60 minutes of football. In this case, they showed up to Kansas City and couldn't even play 30. I'll be honest with you, I stopped charting this game late in the second quarter. Around the time that the Chiefs missed a long field goal during a first half, really an offensive onslaught that you could see was inevitable. I think Kansas City goes field goal, touchdown to open the game. Then they missed the field goal, 55, 56 yarders from Butker. Somehow this Ravens team, clearly not operating anywhere near its potential, was only down 10 at the half. I don't think the Chiefs are very good either, not to me. But there was a lack of fight, a lack of resistance to this Ravens defense that looks like a group that's quit on one or multiple coaches that they have. I don't know if it's true, but it appeared so watching the game. Kansas City scored on 7 of its first 8 drives. Only the missed field goal in the final minute of the second quarter stopped it from being a perfect 8 of 8. We're not good enough. We're not good enough in our preparation. Execution is going to be a word that we'll probably hear on Monday throughout the week. We're somehow defensively in a worse situation than a year ago when Zach Orr was obviously overwhelmed at the beginning of the season. And now we're going to probably listen to the same excuses from Harbaugh and everyone else. To me, it's obvious what has to happen here, but we're probably in for a week of hearing words like tackling, pursuit, effort, execution. We get all these oftentimes we get all these canned responses from Harbaugh and others that, I feel like has just been falling more and more short over the years. As an aside, I was truly amazed at how clueless Tony Romo and Jim Nantz were yesterday during the game, talking about this Ravens team. And basically Romo was talking about this Ravens team as if it was previous Ravens teams, 2024 or 2023 or even seasons prior to that, as if it wasn't like, to me it was plainly obvious in the second quarter that we did not belong on the same field with the Chiefs, at least when our defense was stacked up against their offense. Even though Romo and Nantz have all the access and they're right in the stadium, they couldn't see the gameplay and the flow right in front of their face. To me, there didn't seem to be any correlation at all as to how they were talking about the Ravens and what we saw on the field. I thought that offensively was really not much better. We were calling plays like we were down 21 points when we still had a 7-6 lead. It was very similar to early fourth quarter last week against the Lions, where the Ravens are down 7. I think it's 31-24, and we're calling plays like we're down 14. We almost like we felt like we had to score in 2 or 3 plays. A really puzzling sequence, I thought, early fourth quarter last week against the Lions, and then this week during the second quarter, Monken's offensive play calling. But getting back to the defense for a moment, Kansas City, I don't know if you know this or not, Kansas City had not scored more than 22 points in a game through 3 weeks, and they had 20 at the half. Ravens can't cover anyone. We can't cover anyone. Certainly don't put pressure on the quarterback. Tavis Robinson had the lone sack. I believe Mahomes finishes 25 of 37, so not super efficient from a completion percentage standpoint. 270 yards, though, and 4 touchdowns. Look, I don't think he's been playing well to me in recent years. The Chiefs generally are getting by with a high-level defense that consistently churns out or wins the field position battle. But coming into this game, or moving out of this game, Mahomes sure looked great against Zach Orr's defense. Like I said, they scored on 7 of 8 drives, just really gliding down the field. Now, the stats show 5 of 13 on third down conversions, but they were a perfect 4 of 4 on fourth downs. I think this is the worst defense in the league that Baltimore's fielding right now. And a year ago at this time, after 4 weeks, it really wasn't much better. We had all this talk of the talent level, the secondary in training camp. So many guys participated in it. Zach Orr, Chuck Pagano, Kyle Hamilton even said, it feels like we're playing 12 on 11 at times. Well, that certainly looks way out of touch now, even more so than his tone-deaf comments last week about the Ravens fan base being spoiled. I don't know about you, but nothing would really surprise me this week coming from the Ravens organization. Meaning, are we going to get more careless stuff from Harbaugh or guys that are supposed to be defensive leaders, Hamilton, Roquan, whatever? I didn't think Hamilton played well against the Lions, I'll be honest with you. He got blocked multiple times from depth, but there's something to be said there. I wonder if the players are frustrated because they're not being put in position to succeed, and here's what I mean. I just watched the Browns go into Detroit on Sunday before the Ravens game, and all they literally did was drop a safety down and matched numbers in the run game, whereas the Ravens stayed too high all the time against Detroit and got totally ground down into dust. Cleveland was able to short circuit. At minimum, Cleveland was able to slow down Detroit's run game and short circuit it at times, to be honest. We had none of those answers at all. We had none of those answers at all against Detroit, and we had none yesterday against the Chiefs. It's pretty much the same story every week. So frustrating to watch for me, and I'm sure for you as well. There came a point in time in the second quarter where I realized it's pretty much a waste of time to sit here and chart the defense when they're this unprepared. I'll kind of switch back to the offense for a moment. Like I said, it wasn't much better. Lamar played poorly. At times, he looked like he was mentally incapable of seeing things down the field. Maybe there was so much pressure on him in the six-man blitzes that Spagnuolo often brought, but also the 3+1 spy, which is actually something that the Chiefs have used for years. Generally, it's been Chenal as the +1 guy. Lamar did have two scrambles that kind of reminded me of like 2019, 2020. Basically, he realized, okay, what we're doing on offense is not working. I can drop back here and take off and get some yards. We did score on the opening possession, 9 plays, 70 yards. We only faced 1 third down. Lamar ultimately hits Justice Hill for an 11-yard touchdown catch. The one turnover, the interception he threw to Chenal, that was kind of a below-the-rim play, and it seemed to be a critical moment, both in gameplay and in the Ravens' mindset. Talking about the second possession, we're up 7-3. It looked like we cracked after that interception. I want to report out factual information here in these reaction videos, and this is clearly just an observation, but play calling, Lamar's performance, all of it dipped after that interception. I have no idea how to explain that or why. One simple turnover appeared to have so much of an impact on this team, but it certainly did to me. I have no idea what's going on this team. Communication, workflow, fight. I mean, we're talking about a Ravens team that didn't appear to have the same level of fight that will be necessary to even compete. It just isn't good. I don't know what version of the Ravens this was that showed up to Kansas City, but they didn't show up to play 60 minutes, in my opinion. In terms of the interception, it's a 6-man blitz against the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs were alternating between 5 6-man rushes, so trying to get some pressure, and then the 3+1 spy look that Detroit kind of showed last week. In this case, yes, it's a matchup that Lamar would want, right? Andrews against an inside linebacker. I think likely after the chip is sitting wide open in the left flats, but I could be wrong. You don't really get a great view of it from the broadcast angle. I think Lamar could put that ball up higher to Andrews and make it more of a jump ball than it became. Essentially, that's what I mean when I say it ended up being a below-the-rim play. Chenal could play below the rim. It was a great play by him, don't get me wrong. But the trajectory was low, perhaps because Lamar was kind of fading back on it. We had the ball, or we were just in field goal range, and that's why I say it's a poor decision. Lamar trusts his teammates to make plays, and so I guess, if that's what we're going to go for or that's what we're going to live with, fine. To me, there seems to be a little bit of a limitation in how the Ravens respond to blitzes. Basically, the routes seem to always be deeper down the field than perhaps even necessary, and maybe that's just what Monken wants, and maybe it's what Lamar's comfortable with. But in any case, Kansas City takes that turnover, and they go down, and we still hold them to a field goal, but that's a swing of 6 points there, at least, if not more, meaning we had the opportunity to get a field goal, and instead Kansas City is able to do so. I think it's a poor decision by Lamar, but I'm willing to listen to people say they don't agree. He's just allowing his playmaker to make a play. Fine. It's definitely a poor throw. offensively, we seem to be at this like real fork in the road. And I don't think that this is a situation where the bye week just suddenly solves all these problems. No, we look like a group of players, a team that doesn't believe in each other, and maybe didn't even want to be out there on the field in Kansas City together. Lamar's not sharp. And for some reason he appears, well, we know the reason, that he appears very uncomfortable in the pocket. He knows the reality of our offensive line deficiencies. We're a below-average offensive line. That should be obvious to anyone after watching these 4 games. Lamar has been sacked 15 times in 4 games. Excuse me. It should be obvious to anyone not named Tony Romo or Jim Nantz. They couldn't see things clearly if it was right in front of their face. Lamar's not seeing things well, and I think some of it is, the pressure that's in his face or the perceived pressure when teams drop out. And part of that is, I did see footwork problems last week that I mentioned against the Lions, but Jared Goff had the same issues, to be honest with you. And Sam Darnold had the same issues in another game, meaning there seems to be times when they're a half step off. But I think a lot of it is Lamar's being put in these like obvious passing situations, 3rd and long. 3rd and 8 is 3rd and long to me. And I think that's, for in large part because of our inability to generate anything consistently with the run game or a short passing attack. I think I saw a stat last week after the Detroit loss that Baltimore was like 30th or 31st in the league at average yards to go on 3rd down. It was somewhere in the range of like 3rd and 8.4 was the average. I might have misquoted that. Feel free to let me know if you saw the same stat in the comment section. I have no idea where I saw it. I think it was Twitter or X. The Ravens' 3rd possession, they're still up 7-6, but it was an absolute waste. This is around the time for me when I realized, okay, something is not right here. Henry goes for 11 yards. It's like a lead zone concept off tackle. The Chiefs pretty much gave it to us. They played a 7 technique from their 4-3 look. Noteboom was in the game here, by the way. Stanley was off. Then we get 2 delay of game penalties. Lamar then takes an inexplicable penalties where he's trying to scramble out to the right and he can't get the ball back. The ball's got to be thrown away sooner than that. Just recognizing things slow or not recognizing them at all. That possession was maddening. We're up 7-6. We get a first down on the 11-yard run by Henry. Then one of the delay game situations, and then a 10-yard screen to Henry, so it's 2nd and 5. And we're at 2nd and 5. We've got an 11-yard gain by Henry, 10-yard gain on a screen to him, and we're in spread mode, and we get another delay. I don't know what Lamar's doing. He looked so off on this drive that to me I started to wonder, did he take a big hit on the previous possession or something, like on that interception to Chenal? The team looked off at that moment. Lamar looked really off based on what we've seen from him throughout his career, and it's only early in the second quarter. And then as Kansas City is receiving the punt, I get a text from a friend of mine, a coaching friend of mine, let's put it this way, a very wise older coach, and he says, this team is acting. They're acting like they want to be out there today, but they do not want to be on that field in Kansas City. Watch in the second half, there's going to be 4 or 5 guys suddenly act hurt so they don't have to compete for 60 minutes. And at the time, I was like, okay, we don't look great at all, and I feel like something looks off in our offensive operation, and Lamar certainly wasn't sharp. And then sure enough, in the second and third quarters, we get multiple guys go off the field. Stanley had already left the game injured. Marlon has not played well in the last 7 days at all. Got taken advantage of against Detroit. He goes off. Roquan, and then eventually Lamar. For me, to consider that Lamar, quote, quit on his team, which I do not perceive, is a massive problem. Do I think it's possible? Sure. It's also possible that Harbaugh pulled him late third quarter, fourth quarter to avoid injury in a game that, was really over. It was obvious that we could not get a stop on defense. Another game that we could not get a stop. The massive offensive line issues combined with they're almost converging with Monken's occasional disinterest in using Derrick Henry. They, to me, have created a number of low percentage situations. And meaning the 3rd and 8.4, or even 2nd and 9, or 2nd and 8. Lamar has not responded well in the last 2 weeks. Statistically, he looked great against Detroit, but we took 7 sacks. I think we've got serious issues at the offensive line position with how we're setting our pass pro. It, to me, does not look like it's even average at the NFL level with regard to game plan and ability to function within that game plan and adequately protect our quarterback. How much of that is a Lamar issue? I don't know. I'm willing to admit that it's possible that he is a part of it, that he's not setting the pass pro correctly or that the offensive line is not getting that operation done. Basically, I think it's pretty obvious. You didn't need me to say this. This looks like a team that's coming apart at the seams. And I did think that late in the second quarter. Somehow we're still only down 20-10 at the half, and I guess technically there's hope. There's even a couple of guys in our Ravens Discord, stay the course, stay strong, let's stay focused on the job, and I just didn't see it. Of course, Kansas City goes down in 6 plays, and they take a 27-10 lead to open the third quarter. At that point, it was plainly obvious that the Ravens could not get the Chiefs' offense off the field, not even remotely threaten them, really. Look, to that point, on the touchdown drive to open the third quarter, Kansas City doesn't face a single third down. I don't even know that the in-game analysis is really worth discussing of the second half. This is the worst Baltimore Ravens football team that they've fielded since 2021. And that was the year that Stanley plays one game, the week 1 loss to the Raiders, and then he's done for the year. We lost J.K. and Gus in the preseason, Peters too. Marlon goes down, I think, week 10 or week 11, and then Lamar gets hurt somewhere around the same time period. So at the end of the year, we're a really poor, below-average football team from a talent standpoint. This week, yes, but by the end of the game, we had 6 or 7 defensive starters out against Kansas City. But even still, we were not prepared in the first quarter and certainly not the fourth. Let's do it this way. Even if all of the Ravens' defensive starters are there against the Chiefs yesterday, do we think that suddenly Orr's going to have them getting stops? I just don't see any evidence of that dynamic in this reality or any other. The Ravens are now allowing just over 33 points per game through 4 games, and that number is actually brought down because we faced the Cleveland Browns, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I'm talking about the Week 2 win at home. Otherwise, this is a historically bad defense. It looks to me, my perception is that the players on that side do not believe in what we're doing. Either that or they're just no good, right? And we've got multiple talented guys over there. To me, it's extremely disappointing that Harbaugh can't do anything to help on the defensive side. I don't know that I've ever seen him go over and give instructions defensively. He doesn't appear capable of doing so. We need a head coach who can do so on the offensive or the defensive side, and we don't have that. The Harbaugh's answer would be to either fire or get rid of Zach Orr, or bring in someone else to help fix a problem that he brought in Dean Pease for last year, and we would presume that Chuck Pagano is a part of that equation this year. It's the same dynamic through 4 games. We have a terrible defense that can't stop anyone. Offensive line sucks, and that's directly attributed to EDC in the front office not addressing it enough, in my opinion, and Harbaugh being absolutely clueless. Lamar's playing poorly. All right, he's playing poorly. So we have no commitment to the run game. Let me rephrase that. We don't have an ability to commit to the run game because our O-line play is so poor. If you don't see that dynamic after 4 games about this offensive line, you should probably stop watching my videos because we're just not speaking the same language. The defense is forfeiting points at a gruesome rate. It should be a week of high pressure on Harbaugh to produce something, meaning you're highly paid. It's your full-time job, and you have a lot of talent at your disposal. And now for 2 years, this is what the Ravens fan base gets to begin the season. Yeah, sure, it's a difficult schedule. The NFL did you, I guess, no favors, right? You had to go on the road to play Buffalo and the Chiefs, 2 teams that consistently beat you, and then a home battle with the Lions. I get it, right? Difficult schedule. Well, that's what you want. Meaning, if you're fortunate enough with this group to get in the playoffs, you're not going to see the Browns. You're not going to play the Dolphins. John Harbaugh, in his 18th season, he should be getting paid to win these kind of games, to win playoff games. That's my opinion. And we're no closer to that level than we were a year ago at this time. I don't want to hear excuses or talk about there's an early bye to fix these issues. You fix football issues on a daily basis. You don't wait to fix them until the bye week. That's how clueless a lot of people are. In fact, you don't have to fix issues on the offensive line or fix issues on the defense if they're already solved in training camp or the preseason. This is maddening. We're talking about a professional football organization with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield together. And we committed to Daniel Falele and Trevor Voorhees or Travis Voorhees or whatever the hell his name is. And at the time, people like George Warhop and Harbaugh acted like everyone else was wrong to question that. When we draft Buchanan in round 4, and then Carson Vincent, a developmental tackle, in round 5, or last year, Adisa Isaac in round 3. The O-line is Baltimore's blind spot. That's my opinion, both from a front office perspective and their head coach / position coach. I'm talking about Warhop. Remember Warhop in training camp? He so forcefully backed Falele being the starter. I don't believe in rotations. They're not productive. Well, what do you think now? We are not able to produce things at the offensive line position. We can't execute. And the way I see it, Rosengarten hasn't progressed much in his second season either. The guard play is abysmal. We're now without Stanley for the foreseeable future, I would guess. Our starting quarterback is either hurt or he quit on his team in a high-profile game against Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. No matter which one you believe, neither is good. I have no idea where this defense goes from here. Admittedly, I don't know what it takes to succeed at that level. Obviously, I'm far from it. But I will say this. It's my perspective that we just call plays on defense for most of the game, irrespective of the formation and the way the other offense, the offense lines up. Now, if you stop the run game consistently, then that's fine. That's actually what Mike McDonald does to an extent. Stop the run and then throw out any of your 12 to 15 different coverage looks. Essentially put the quarterback in a post-snap blender because they're trying to process what's happening, and it's 3rd and 8. Really, what I'm describing is what's happening with the Ravens offense. That's where this Ravens team is. We just don't look prepared for the specific threats that an offense brings. And that's on snap-by-snap basis. You could, what I mean is, and we talked about this on Inside the Coverage last week, EA and I, on the first possession for the Lions, the first 4th down conversion, St. Brown completion in the right flats, down inside the 10, maybe around the 5. And EA was talking about the play, and I said, and I asked him to stop. I said, you know what? I have a feeling we'd run the same coverage if St. Brown was to the top side, if he was in the backfield. It's like we call our coverage, and that's it. Ultimately, we do not do things to stop the specific threat on a snap-by-snap basis, whether that's St. Brown in the slot, whether that's keeping Mahomes from scrambling to the field side, preventing Kelsey from having a free release. We just do not look like a defense being coached with that level of detail and be in that specific a manner. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Harbaugh's answers to any of these tough questions this week. If anyone from the Baltimore media will even ask them, first of all, and see if Harbaugh gets any pushback or questions about his commitment in the last year plus to so many unproven guys like Falele, Voorhees, Teddy Buchanan, who I thought looked terrible in coverage yesterday, Zach Orr. Those are situations that haven't turned out to be anywhere near ready for this type of game. And if we're not talking about the Ravens being ready for this type of game on the road against the Chiefs, on the road against the Bills, then we're just not a serious football team. Then we'll be happy with wins against the Dolphins, with wins against the Browns. They looked uninspired yesterday. They looked unprepared and really unworthy of the type of focus that this Ravens team should get. John Harbaugh hasn't done a good enough job of getting this team ready for 2 seasons in a row. For us to be watching this in September and expecting somehow a different result in January is a pretty unrealistic thought as it stands right now. In any case, this is my reaction video to the Ravens' 37-20 loss to the Chiefs. Credit to the Chiefs, Mahomes, Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, all of their defense. Outplayed us. Second week in a row, I felt like a team has been more physical, more prepared to play us specifically than we are to play them. And that, to me, all falls back on John Harbaugh. The offensive coordinators, Monken and Orr, of course, they deserve various degrees of blame or credit if things go well. But really, this is a John Harbaugh issue, and he's the guy that has to do a better job, and I'm not sure that he can.